The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Window World of Western Mass, a local family business with experienced craftsmen offering wood, vinyl, and composite windows. WindowWorldOfWesternMA.com. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Ski Sundown in nearby New Hartford, Connecticut, offering skiing and snowboarding 7 days and nights a week until 10 p.m. Ticket and lesson information at skisundown.com. Winter made better.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith. The sickness is having one last hurrah with Monty Belmonte, so we're tucking him in and wishing for lower temperatures on the other side. For him, not for us, because it's cold enough outside. Later in the show, food and more food, because food is just the best, and we'll bring you 2 ways to eat at Local Burger in Northampton and with a mezcal pairing in Holyoke with author Tess Rose Lampert and chef Neftali Duran. But first, someone newly in the Oval Office has been awfully active this week, and a certain congressman might have some thoughts about that.
Well, hello.
Hey, how are you? Sorry.
Oh, no worries. You're only a minute late. We won't hold it against you. It's been a busy week.
Yeah.
My body's immune response to this week has been to be as sick as I've been in my adult life, so that's fun.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
No, we carry on.
Yeah.
Time for our weekly check-in with U.S. That's why I sound like an old blues man, is basically what I'm explaining right now, yeah. Time for our weekly check-in with U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts, Worcester's own Congressman Jim McGovern. And it has been a busy week, and it's almost hard to think about where to begin, but I think I should begin by saying at least that this segment started on my old radio show on 93.9 The River after a community meeting at the Deuce, the World War II Club in Northampton, where many in the community were reaching out to you because after the election of Donald Trump, the first time, there was a sense of a helplessness and desperation. And then it dawned on me, maybe if we created a conduit on the radio where people could ask questions of you and I could ask questions of you, that perhaps we could create a sense of community, especially if what's going on is making some people feel fearful, as I know it is. I also know that there are many people out there that are excited about the new administration. There was an article in the Gazette about a group of folks watching in East Hampton the inauguration who are excited about it. I encourage you to send your questions to the congressman too. But here we are again at the beginning of the second Trump presidency, and at the beginning of the Biden presidency, or the very near beginning of the Biden presidency, January 6th, 2021, rioters attacked the Capitol. After the inauguration this week, the president pardoned the January 6th rioters. You were there at the Capitol. You were under attack. You were the last person on the floor of the House of Representatives. What are your GOP colleagues saying publicly or privately about these January 6th pardons?
Well, privately, many of them, feel the way I do, that this is horrific. I mean, I was there that day, as you recall, and I barely escaped, but I escaped because I had the protection of the Capitol Hill police and other police that were holding these rioters off. I saw police beaten brutally with baseball bats, with flagpoles, pepper spray in their eyes. I mean, some of the officers died as a result of their injuries. 140 of them were badly injured. It was a traumatic day for them. It was a traumatic day for our staff, who were, some of them hiding behind desks. And again, the idea that one of the first things you do is sign an executive order to say, okay, everything's fine. You're all pardoned. Not even making any distinctions between the crimes, I think is offensive. It's an insult to our police officers, not just the Capitol Police, but there were other police here that day. And it's an insult to everybody who was here. We saw this building desecrated. Feces spread all over walls and desks, and statues that were damaged and destroyed. And the Capitol building had not ever been infiltrated like this since 1812 when the British came in. And Donald Trump has spent the last 4 years trying to whitewash history. Unfortunately, he's had a lot of Republicans here who have been willing to go along because they want to make him happy and they know that he would like this to go away. And so, yeah, a lot of my Republican friends are expressing deep concern privately, but publicly they're saying, let's move on. Okay, no, this is not a big deal. And I find that to be particularly annoying. I mean, if you privately believe that something is wrong, then you have an obligation, especially if you're in public service, to publicly say that it's wrong. And just a little footnote here. Some of the people who were released, they posted online. One of them posted online, "Thank you, Donald Trump, for pardoning us. I'm going out now to buy some effing guns." And I have some colleagues, Republican colleagues, who want to welcome these rioters back to the Capitol so they can give them a tour. It's so insulting and offensive that it's almost kind of beyond words.
You did give some people who had come with tickets to the inauguration a tour before the inauguration, though. Is that correct?
I did.
Were those all Republicans or?
Yeah. I mean, all Republicans. All people who supported Trump, and they came down here hoping to see the inauguration in person, and then he canceled it, and so they couldn't. And so we offered to give people, if they wanted to, we came in on Sunday. If they wanted, I could give them a tour of the Capitol, and I could bring them on the House floor and show them where the ceremony is going to be in the rotunda, and just to kind of make this trip a little bit more enjoyable. And I know they were all disappointed that the outside ceremony was canceled. But look, I was happy to do it. I mean, I'm proud of the United States Capitol building. I'm proud of our history, and I want people to be as excited about this place as I am.
Worth noting that this is a service available to all constituents. You can go through your congressional office and get a tour of the Capitol for free. It's an excellent thing to do if you're going on a tour of Washington, D.C., and you don't have to bring a flagpole and try to bust your way in. You can go and get a great tour. It's really great. Speaking with U.S. Congressman Jim McGovern, the other huge, it's a gauntlet of news stories coming out specifically because of the executive orders that President Trump has been signing. We can try to give a rundown of as many of them as have kind of risen to the top. There's probably hundreds that I haven't even processed, and perhaps you haven't as either, but some of the ones that seem to stick out, things that have been kind of dyed in the wool of the fabric of the U.S., including things like the Equal Opportunity Act appearing to be imperiled by some of these executive orders. Diversity, equity, and inclusion employees working in the federal government to that end had been asked to be placed on leave by 5 p.m. yesterday. The federal DEI websites are now dark. So let's start there. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's even sort of a low-key snitch act in affair where if you are catching somebody in your department working towards diversity, you're supposed to report them. What's your take on that particular executive order and the implications that it has for the federal government and for your constituents?
Yeah. It's really unfortunate that that's where they seem to want to focus so much of their energy and attention. I've always viewed diversity as a strength, right? I mean, I think, whether you're a business or whether you're a congressional office or a governmental agency, I mean, it's important to have a diverse group of people there, who are all qualified and who all are in there are based on merit as well, but to give you different perspectives. That's something we should strive for, right? That means we're going to be more effective in our response to, whatever we're dealing with. But these guys are using it as going back to the old kind of stereotypes. Oh, this is about giving people a leg up who really don't deserve to be in that office, who are not qualified, who based on merit could not get in. And that's just a big lie. It's insulting to these really qualified and talented public servants. But it also is moving us back to creating a country where, everybody is like, white men in these offices. And again, nothing against white men because I'm one myself, but the point of the matter is that we are stronger, we are more effective if we have a diverse group of people working for the same goal. But, this is appealing to the cheap seats in the MAGA base.
I'll add that I think that the Irish are off-white, if that matters at all. Speaking with U.S. Congressman Jim McGovern, McGoverning with McGovern, another big issue is immigration. Your family, my family, came over in the early part of the 20th century. Yeah. And immigration has been one of Donald Trump's major talking points since the beginning of his political aspirations. Sending troops to the border, it looks like, very shortly, and a crackdown on sanctuary cities. Chicago has been making most of the headlines, but I know Boston and your hometown of Worcester are bracing for the fact that they may be targets because they have declared themselves previously to be sanctuary cities. Northampton, Amherst, other places in the 413 have declared themselves sanctuary cities. School systems in some of these places are saying they won't cooperate with ICE. What's your take on what these cities in your communities should or should not be doing to either make themselves a target or should they be cooperating with ICE?
And the reason why the school system in Worcester put out a notice about what might happen is because the Trump administration has made it clear that they're not focused on businesses or, manufacturing companies, they're also going to be focused in on going into schools and churches as well, which is something that hasn't been done before. So look, we're trying to figure out what all this looks like and whether or not there's going to be any consultation or advance notice with local officials and ICE. We don't know. But here's the thing. I get it. I mean, we need to focus in on securing our borders, and there are multiple ways to do that. The bottom line is people are coming here in part because situations in their own countries are so horrific. And in some of these countries, the situation is horrific because of U.S. policy. So we need to fix our immigration laws. We need to have orderly immigration to this country. But, when Trump talks about, I'm going after murderers and rapists, there's a minuscule percentage of immigrants who come to this country fit in that category. Most of the murderers and rapists are white men in this country, but he's not advocating that we deport all white men, but he's focused in on trying to demonize the immigrant community. And there'll be an economic price to pay for that, and there's a moral price to pay for that.
Do you think that the passage of the Laken-Riley Act, which basically would allow any immigrant to be detained on an accusation of any type of crime, will add to this, what Trump is trying to do with this mass deportation? That, in theory, then you could accuse any immigrant of anything, right, and they would be subject to deportation.
Correct. And by the way, just so people are clear, they talk about undocumented immigrants. In that definition, includes people with temporary protected status, includes the Dreamers who have DACA protection. Under this bill, these people fall into that category as well. So I could accuse you of shoplifting, and I don't have to prove that you did it, but I can if I get you detained, then you're subject to deportation. I just don't think that that's what most people think is okay. You get somebody in the community who hates immigrants, he can go around and accuse everybody, and that would be sufficient to begin deportation proceedings. Again, we want secure borders. We want to fix our immigration system, but we don't want to lose our soul in the process, right? And now Trump wants to say that, if you're born here, that doesn't mean you're a citizen. I mean, it's in the Constitution. It's in the 14th Amendment. He wants to change that. We can secure our borders. We can fix our immigration laws. We don't have to betray our values.
Another group of people that feel particularly targeted after the inaugural address on Monday are trans folks. Your colleague in Massachusetts, a Democrat, Seth Moulton, told our parent company, WGBH News, after Trump's inaugural address, when he said that it would now be U.S. policy that there are only two genders. Seth Moulton said, quote, "And this is why I've been pushing the Democratic Party to actually stop denying that this is an issue and that we have to have a response." What is your response, and what do you think the Democratic Party's response should be to this rhetoric surrounding trans people?
Our response should be that we respect all people, and we respect them in a way where we protect their rights, period. I disagree with Seth Moulton that the election was lost because of trans rights. I think, quite frankly, the election was lost because a lot of people feel that their life is getting more difficult, not getting better, that the cost of living is so high. I think that's really what made the difference in this last election. And I think what Trump did by saying that in his inaugural address is he put a target on trans individuals. This is a community that has already been targeted, where there are high rates of suicide, where there's high rates of bullying. And for Trump to not want to bring people together and instead want to divide people, I think that that's a dereliction of duty for anybody who's president of the United States. And it's really quite sad. And look, the entire LGBTQ plus community is concerned about the Trump presidency. And I understand why, because it's not just Trump, it's his followers and it's his allies in Congress who say the most bigoted, rotten, awful things. I don't want a country that discriminates against people because of who they are. And my wife and I raised our kids to respect everybody. And I thought we were moving in that direction, and Trump is bringing us and moving us backwards.
What about your trans colleague in Congress, the first ever? Are you hearing anything from them, about them, or anything surrounding them to try to make them feel included with all this rhetoric?
Yeah, so Sarah McBride is from Delaware and has been really kind of a good example in our caucus on how to talk about this stuff. Representative McBride has not taken the bait, basically just saying that we got to keep our eye on the ball. We have to provide a circle of protection around people who feel vulnerable. We have to continue to push back against any curtailment of rights. And we have to do a better job of talking to people who, quite frankly, don't know enough about this topic. I mean, we had a situation in the Worcester City Council where a non-binary city council member was being misgendered by others in the city council and in some ways in a very derogatory way. It was important for the community to push back on that. You know, you can judge each of us on our performance, but to use your platform to behave in a derogatory way to somebody is unacceptable. I mean, I didn't come to Congress to sit by and watch people lose their rights. I came here to try to help empower people and expand rights for people and create a country where, you know, love is not a dirty word, but hate is. And unfortunately, we have a government right now where hate is the name of the game. Everything is about demonizing people and about dividing people. And it's such a horrible thing to do. And it's also such a waste of time. And it also doesn't get at the issue of how do we improve the quality of life for everybody. Those are things I think that are the issues we ought to be focused on.
Speaking with U.S. Congressman Jim McGovern, we got a listener question from Tom Bassett, who wants to know about the Equal Rights Amendment to the Constitution. He read that it must be published by the National Archive to be active. Biden, on his way out, only endorsed the idea. It's an official amendment. He did not direct the archivist to publish. So far, the archivist and vice archivist have refused to publish. So what is the status of the Equal Rights Amendment?
The truthful answer is I don't know. I mean, I read Biden's proclamation, and I'm trying to understand, like, legally and what does it mean, and is that it? And I'm still waiting to get I've made a couple of inquiries to the Library of Congress to try to figure out, like, okay, if it was that easy, why didn't we do it before? And so I'll have a better answer next week.
I think one of the things that we may need to institutionalize to keep people of a more liberal bent from being institutionalized over the course of the next few years is to talk about what we can do to hold on to hope. So I think maybe I'll begin ending our conversations every week with what is something that is keeping you hopeful this week, Congressman McGovern?
And that's a good question. And believe me, this has been a tough week to feel hopeful. But I think what keeps me hopeful is I'm getting lots of texts and emails and calls to the office where people are trying to think creatively and strategically about how to fight back. So the conversation isn't like, oh my God, I got to hide. It's like, okay, how do we strategize so we can be the most effective, in stopping them from, cutting SNAP or cutting Medicare or turning back the clock on civil rights. And I don't know all the answers, and we're trying to figure all of this out. How do we better communicate so that, we are building our coalition and not just staying the same? Because after all, politics is about addition, and clearly, we need to expand our movement. And the other thing is, I had a really good conversation with a bunch of young people who came down, who made an interesting observation, saying that what shocked them about the last election was not that Trump got the most votes, but how many people who were registered to vote who did not vote. We have to figure that out as well. Are these people? Is it a pox on both your houses, or do they think it doesn't matter who wins, or what is it, and how do we address that? And then the final thing that gives me hope is there's lots of stuff that's going on in our communities that is hopeful. And I said this 100 times before. I'll say it again. It's things like the March Against Hunger that you lead. Good people come together, raise close to $600,000 or plus, and it's real, and it's helping people in our community get the nutrition and the food they need so they don't go hungry. That's hopeful. That's real. It's not just rhetoric or a good line or a good speech. It's real and concrete. So there's a lot of incoming right now, and sometimes you feel like you're drinking water from a fire hose. But I'm really grateful that people aren't giving up.
U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts, Congressman Jim McGovern, joins us every week, McGoverning with McGovern. If you've got a question for the Congressman, you can send it our way, and I'll ask it on your behalf. thefab413@nepm.org. Good luck, Congressman.
Yeah,
Week 1.
Feel better.
I'm trying so hard. I seriously have never been this sick in my adult life. It's crazy. But luckily, I can do a lot of work from home, so I'm not bored.
Anyway, it's great to be with you. I'll talk to you soon.
Soon we'll discover how local is more than just a name with Tabby, Joe, and Lexi at Local Burger in Northampton. But first, an evening that will teach you more about one of the newest spirits to enter the U.S. sphere. Tess Rose Lampert and Neftali Duran join us to talk about their mezcal pairing dinner tomorrow night in Holyoke. You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, offering Co-op Advantage checking with cash back on all purchases, plus secure debit card controls, all from the UMass 5 mobile banking app. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. Tomorrow, Friday, January 24th, at the new De La Luz on Ray Street in Holyoke, you can experience an evening of mezcal and Oaxacan food, including a guided tasting of 5 artisanal agave spirits with agave educator and author of the Essential Tequila and Mezcal Companion, Tess Rose Lampert.
While tasting, guests will get an in-depth background for each spirit, plus insight into general information about agave spirits, history, and culture, pairing, buying, and storing bottles, plus time for questions. Some of the spirits tasted will be exclusive batches available only through this private tasting.
The mezcal will be paired with food from Oaxacan chef, our friend living in Holyoke, Chef Neftali Duran. Neftali Duran is a cook, advocate, educator, and organizer working toward an equitable food system and building a network of indigenous food leaders. He's a Salzburg Global Fellow and co-founder of the I Collective, an indigenous collective that promotes a healthy food system that values people, traditional knowledge, and the planet over profit.
Tess Rose Lampert is an agave educator and consultant who has enjoyed a lifelong connection with Mexican culture. She's traveled extensively throughout Mexico to learn about agave spirits from the families and communities that produce them, and has dedicated a good deal of her professional life to fostering respect and appreciation for what is first and foremost an extension of culture, and to center the communities behind traditional agave spirits.
And more on Neff. Also, is Khalees my private hookup for awesome mezcal direct from Oaxaca. That's one of membership has its privileges.
And if you would like to be one of those people, then you should probably be at this dinner.
Yeah, you got an opportunity to do this tomorrow at De La Luz on Ray Street in Holyoke. We don't know you personally yet, Tess, but tell us what gave you the taste for agave and mezcal and made you want to discover all about it.
I came to agave spirits in kind of a roundabout way. You know, I drank a lot of tequila and some pretty bad quality mezcal in college, as you do. I was actually taking a break from my work in the wine industry when I went to Oaxaca, and I was lucky to have some friends who are from Oaxaca and their families produce mezcal for generations take me to visit a lot of their families and neighbors and teach me all about the culture of mezcal and show me how it's made and really give me an in-depth perspective. So I was really lucky to learn about mezcal from the source, from the communities that have been keeping this knowledge and wisdom alive for generations.
How did you two encounter each other? Was it here stateside or was it somewhere in Oaxaca?
It was here stateside on social media, figuring out, obviously talking about Oaxaca and mezcal and culture. But we've traveled together in Oaxaca, visited different producers and different palenques, and we hope to continue to do that as part of our learnings.
It's such a nice guide. I'm looking for the cocktail section.
Yeah, and also Tess and I are, I'm a little bit more of a purist when it comes to mezcal. Mm-hmm. 99%, 95% of the time, I will not drink a cocktail, but they're delicious and people love them, and I understand that. And as Tess said, there's a lot of Mexican-American bartenders doing really, really amazing work at introducing, because that's one of the things. Mezcal is barely being introduced to the American palate, to the American taste. And I understand, even if I'm a purist, people love cocktails.
Now, one of the things that you taught me that I, grew up thinking incorrectly was that mezcal was a type of tequila, but it is exactly the opposite of that, right? Can you explain the differences between mezcal and tequila?
Yeah, tequila is specific to the tequila region of Jalisco. Mezcal can be made in different states of Mexico. but people from Oaxaca, we will always argue that mezcal belongs to Oaxaca, and it's been made ancestrally for thousands of years, at least 8,500, 600 years, and it's been part of rituals, it's been part of celebrations, it's been part of everyday life and everyday all the celebrations around everything from birth to death. There's always mezcal around. The culture around mezcal has had its ups and downs. It was at some point forbidden to distill mezcal by the Spanish crown because they couldn't tax it, and there's just a long history of a mezcal being of the peoples. Nowadays, it's you can find it in very very fancy restaurants and bars, but it continues to be a spirit of the people.
And distinction-wise, there's also a makeup distinction too. Tess, can you talk about that? Like where mezcal has to be 100% agave, but tequila can possibly be a mix.
Yes, that is correct. I like to think of mezcal as the grandmother of tequila, and tequila is just one subset. Because of the marketing and commercialization of tequila, it has developed into a product that legally can be made with only 51%, so the legal majority of an agave base. Technically, all tequila, whether it's 100% agave or 51% agave, should be made from the blue agave only, though we know that that's not true, even though that's the law. But mezcal, the laws are in flux and constantly evolving and also problematic, but luckily we do have established that every mezcal does have to at least be 100% agave, and that can be made from around 40 plus different varieties of agave that are listed right now.
We're speaking with the author of the Essential Tequila and Mezcal Companion, Tess Rose Lampert, and Oaxacan chef living in Holyoke, Neftali Duran, about the mezcal tasting that is happening tomorrow, Friday, January 24th at De La Luz on Ray Street in Holyoke.
So how many types of agave are there? Because I think people maybe know of just blue and maybe silver, and that's it. But there's got to be like many more varieties that are grown and are used for mezcal production.
Yeah, there are around 200 varieties of agave, and of those, around 40 of them are traditionally used to make spirits across Mexico. And it gets a little confusing because there are lots of varieties and sub-varieties, and there are at least 2 different names for each variety, the scientific name and then the common name. And oftentimes, the common names can be used, the same common name can be used to describe different agaves depending on the region. And sometimes there's a lot of confusing crossover.
Like Italian wines.
Exactly like Italian wines. It's exactly how I describe it. Yes.
I knew my people and your people were connected, Neff.
We are.
Yes, we are. When we talked about your background in food justice, the colonization of this as a product came to the fore a couple of weeks ago during the Golden Globes when the host comedian Nikki Glaser made a joke saying the point of art is not to win awards. The point of art is to start a brand of tequila that's so popular you never have to make art again. And that seems to be happening an awful lot. Can you tell us about the colonization of mezcal?
I described it before. Mezcal is the new gold rush. People are rushing to make money from agave spirits. It's relatively easy, I believe, for people to have a tequila brand. And as Tess mentioned, what I'm worried the most in the long term with all the natural disasters that are happening, and last year we had a really intense fire season in Oaxaca, which was unprecedented, and at least 6 people perished unnecessarily. And one of the reasons is the monocropping of the land with agave that has been going on for a while because of the rush to make mezcal. One of my main concerns is to make sure that we are not monocropping and that we are actually thinking about the soil, the land, and the future, the water, and the future of those families that have been making mezcal for a long time. And one way that we can do that is by having relationships with the families and communities that have been making mezcal for many generations. Support the families where we know the money is gonna go back to those families, to those communities, and stay there instead of buying tequila or mezcal from people that you see on TV.
We're speaking with Chef Neftali Duran, originally from Oaxaca, living in Holyoke, and down the street from where Neff lives at De La Luz on Ray Street you can go to a mezcal tasting and Oaxacan food dinner hosted by Neff and Tess Rose Lampert, the author of the Essential Tequila and Mezcal Companion. Tess, what mezcals will be tasted at this event tomorrow night that people could look forward to?
Well, I am really excited about the lineup that I have cherry picked. I always like to pick a mix of things that people can find and buy a bottle of if they like it. And I also like to throw in one or two special bottles that I have purchased directly from producers while visiting them in Mexico. So I won't give away all of the details, but we'll definitely have mezcal from two families that Neff and I are friends with in Oaxaca. So Dos Pasiones and La Venia will definitely be featured. Zinacantan from Puebla. And then we're going to have some special bottles from Durango and Michoacan. So a little bit of a tour from all over to pair with the different dishes.
We know, not only you, but we have a lot of other friends that are very interested in learning more about mezcal, and I think this is a good opportunity to get together in this wonderful weather of New England, with like all the background noise going on in the U.S. and really just sip on mezcal, learn about mezcal, and it's some really delicious food. I'm proud. Hopefully, forget a little bit about the outside noise for a minute.
Tess, what was one of the more surprising things you learned about mezcal culture in your research for this book?
I think one of the surprising things that I learned initially when I first started to get to know the people and communities was when I came back to the US and realized that most of the people who were engaged with mezcal were still really looking at it as a product rather than an extension of a living, breathing culture. And that was my main motivator in trying to do some work with the communities and to bridge that gap between the people who were really the main advocates at the time, these bartenders and brand ambassadors, really the first few brand ambassadors who were promoting this as the cool new product and really redefining and challenging that narrative as this is not just a cool new product. This is not the same as like that new whiskey from your favorite brand. This is something that requires and demands more involvement and more respect than any other product that we're used to using in the industry.
What's one of the more challenging things about bringing this book to life at an event like this?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I try to do in events is really adapt to the questions and engagement of the particular audience. So rather than having like a script or things that I definitely want to get accomplished, I like to meet people where they're at and have it be really conversational by engaging with people in a way that feels natural and celebrates their curiosity. It establishes a connection that makes people want to know more. That's always my goal, is to ignite people's curiosity so that they want to know more. And the way that I've structured the book with so many different parts of general information, specific product reviews, cocktail sections that feature young Mexican-American bartenders from across the country, there's a point of engagement for everyone. So I try and sprinkle in little tidbits from each of those sections so that regardless of where your interest lies, there's something that can pique that curiosity and hopefully inspire people to learn more in a similar way through the book as an extension of the time that we get to spend together.
And the book is The Essential Tequila and Mezcal Companion by Tess Rose Lampert, How to Select, Collect, and Savor Agave Spirits. It will be featured as part of a mezcal tasting at De La Luz on Ray Street in Holyoke tomorrow evening, Friday, January 24th, with Oaxacan chef Neff Tali Duran making the food to accompany this mezcal tasting. If you're interested in this mezcal tasting, there's a Facebook event page about it. And if you look under Western Mass Mezcal Club or De La Luz or Mezcal Tasting and Dinner Experience, and we'll include a link to it in our show notes with the podcast for this. It's happening tomorrow night, Friday, the 24th at De La Luz Soundstage at Ray Street in Holyoke. Neff Tali Duran, Chef Neff from Holyoke via Oaxaca, and author of The Essential Tequila and Mezcal Companion, Tess Rose Lampert. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure.
Our pleasure. And a quick plug, once again, for Tess Rose Lampert's book, The Essential Tequila and Mezcal Companion. It's a beautiful and informative piece of literature, perfect for a deep dive. Now that we've had a taste of Oaxaca, let's bring those taste buds back home for a visit to Local Burger in Northampton. You're listening to The Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, offering solar options, energy security, and solutions for the local community. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
Want to hear a story about Bobby Bones?
Come on. Oh, yeah, here we go.
Yeah,
He's your competitor from Tennessee.
our competitor from Tennessee.
Joe, who is Bobby Bones?
Bobby Bones does a job you do, and he's also a stand-up comedian.
He's a radio host.
Yeah. So he was at the Calvin, and someone here was a fan, sent him a text, said, hey, if you come over, we'll buy you dinner. He came over. He had Captain Crunch chicken tenders. He went back to a second show. He mentioned us 3 times. He wrote a best-selling book, and he put that menu in his book. And he loved this place, and he talked about us a lot.
One of these days, I'll make my Bobby Bones.
There you go.
That sounds like a threat.
Make your bones? It's like a mafia threat.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Time for another local hero spotlight. And despite the fact that I've had a little bit of the bubons this week, I made a special pilgrimage with an N95 mask that I'm pulling down once in a while so that I can sound okay on the radio. In my new persona as a blues man, listen to my voice. Here at a place.
Tom Waits impersonation is coming along nicely.
An inebriated good evening to you all.
Inebriated good evening to you all.
And it just so happens that I spent an inebriated evening or two here. No, I'm just kidding.
Those were afternoons,
Those
not
were
evenings.
afternoons. Yes. We are at Local in downtown Northampton. Burgers, fries, and more. My good friend Steve Sanderson from the Northampton Arts Council, who is the morning show host of 93.9 The River, once said, if you ever wanted to whack Monty Belmonte, the best way to do that would be at 12:30 any Wednesday afternoon, find him in the front window of Local. Local was a BYOB joint, and we BYOB'd every Wednesday for years.
My name is Tabitha Southrank. I'm the general manager of the East Hampton location.
My name is Joe Agneri, and I am an owner of Local.
Hi, my name is Lexi Bartolucci. I'm the front of house manager of the Northampton location.
In absentia, Chef Jeff. Joe's son creates the menus for not only this local and the East Hampton local, but also Local Burgie. And we're here doing a local hero spotlight on Local with Seesaw, the local hero folks.
Not the Keene one?
We don't care about Keene. This is the Fabulous 413. People know you for your burgers, but let's talk about the local aspect of what Local is, since this is a local hero spotlight. What are you bringing in from the local community?
So our grass-fed burgers we get from family farms whenever we can. Lately we've been using Porter Farm in Ashfield, and they supply us with all of our grass-fed beef that we use at all 3 locations in this area.
We get our potatoes from a local farmer in Hadley, Barnwood Farm. In season, we use tomatoes and other stuff from local farms.
We also use local ice cream from Maple Valley in Hadley, one of the best places to get ice cream. Definitely check them out or come here and get a shake.
And local beer, too, now that you serve beer and alcohol.
Now that it's no longer BYOB.
It's like looking at your beer list. I see one from literally around the corner in Progression and Iron Duke out of they're still in Ludlow, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we have abandoned building.
We have Berkshire Brewing Company, Leadfoot out in Chicopee. BBC also has a lot of spirits that they do from Berkshire Distilling Company, I believe it's called. And in the East Hampton location at our bar, we have their Greylock gin featured on our well, which is very, very nice high-end gin to be in the well, but it's delicious.
See previous episode of the Fabulous 413 when we went to go visit those distillers.
Indeed, with all of their fabulous gins.
Joe, who's one of the owners of Local, with your son, Chef Jeff, talk about the inception, the origin story of Local Burger.
We wanted to open a restaurant, and Jeff met a girl from Northampton, and now they are married with 3 kids, and that's how we wound up in Northampton. And
because you're a New Yorker,
yeah,
we've had many Red Sox, Yankees, and other.
Yeah, I'm in New York.
Yeah.
And we got here, we didn't know what kind of restaurant we were going to open. So one of my other sons said, "How about a burger joint?" We said, "Okay," and here we are.
I mean, maybe the name gives it away, but was buying from local farms part of the plan from the beginning, part of the commitment?
We named it Local to be a local community, but it wound up we got local produce and farm and meat
I feel like a burger joint suits itself well to local sourcing because you can buy a lot of the ingredients that you use from local farms. And also, it seems like for a lot of restaurants, there are some challenges sometimes to doing that in terms of having regular deliveries and that sort of thing. Is this something that you've perfected over the years, or still
Especially considering it's more than the one location. Like, it was one thing when it was just Northampton, but then, like, when Local Burgie showed up, and then Keene, and then East Hampton now, just doubling down on Claire's question, like, has it become an issue, or was it ever an issue getting a hold of local products for all the locations?
So we actually used to have a really hard time keeping grass-fed consistent. We've had a lot of angry guests coming in because we couldn't store it. The grass-fed, the way that they have it packaged, they can't do it fresh. It has to be at a frozen point, and we didn't have the space for it. So if anybody's noticed, we've had grass-fed a lot more consistently now because of the space that we have in East Hampton.
Can you talk about expanding? Because not every restaurant gets a chance to kind of create its own local franchise the way that you guys have. But like, you've got a food truck too that shows up at festivals and breweries and is available for rent. Can anybody talk about moving on beyond the corner of Pearl Street? Is this Pearl? This is Strong and Bridge. They are the same thing until the corner.
Yeah, right.
Opening East Hampton was definitely an experience. It was the first time I'd seen a restaurant open. I mean, it didn't start from scratch, but we did a lot. We painted, we had to do a lot of things between Riffs and Local Burger.
Riffs was the restaurant in there before.
Just kind of watching that change and the excitement. I mean, when Jeff first posted his Facebook post on Northampton's Facebook, the cat's out the bag, it had over 1,000 like interactions. Like, people were so excited. They wanted to know. People like to know what's up. So we knew going into it we were going to have a good following. I personally was worried that with the locations being so close to each other and the food truck, which we bring to abandoned building right behind us, I thought it would interfere and that having a third location in such a small radius would be a challenge, but it has not been so at all. It's been amazing.
The fact that people don't leave town enough works in your favor.
Yeah. That food truck has also made it so that you can be really engaged in the community too. I see that food truck at a bunch of different events, and that's, I think, a big part of the mission of being local in that way.
So we do a lot of events. One that I can think of off the top of my head is we did the Magic for Maddie celebration over in Southampton.
What's that?
I don't have a perfect understanding of it, but there was a young girl, and she was really sick and unwell, and she had passed away. And the community in Southampton came together in such a strong, like, heartwarming, bittersweet force. They built playgrounds, they do all these things, and it's still going, so her spirit is still alive. So we did that, and we'll donate a portion of our sales in events like those to the foundation, and we do our best to be involved as much as possible. One of the easiest ways to make people happy is with food, so we have that nailed.
Speaking of the food, Captain Crunch chicken tenders, poutine, it seems like there are a lot of kind of special things on offer here. Who is the brainchild of
Jeff is the mastermind here. Yeah. Okay.
Brainchild is the opposite.
Jeff has a culinary background, though. Jeff is a chef. That's why I call him Chef Jeff, because it rhymes, but he's a real chef.
Yeah, he graduated from Johnson & Wales. He has a master's degree in this business, and he's brilliant.
He really is. And one of the nice things about coming here every Wednesday and being a food and wine snob is he would be trying out different recipes for me and my friend Brian, the wine squirrel. Squirrel! What do you think of this? Okay, I like it, but it maybe don't put it with a flour tortilla, put it with a corn tortilla. Like that kind of a back and forth. And to be part of that creative process with Chef Jeff was incredible. It was our goal. Every time we came in here, no matter what the special was, especially if we've never had it before, we must order the special to try it out. One time, it was kangaroo and antelope sliders. Do you remember that, Joe?
Yes, I do. I thought they were never going to sell. We had 4 wild game burgers. I'm saying they're not going to sell. In 1 week, they were gone.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, what?
I did go home and feel a little sad about eating kangaroo. Exactly. And then people were like, kangaroos are a-holes.
And that was probably not a locally sourced ingredient.
No,
yeah, that's a new kangaroo farm. Just open up.
Come in and box them.
You have to admit, your favorite was fried cheese curds.
Oh my God. Part of the poutine experience in some ways.
Yeah.
Every time we would get these fried cheese curds.
Did you get them plain or did you get them buffaloed?
Plain.
Buffalo's the way to go.
There we go.
Buffalo is so much better.
It's so much better.
I'm not
I
a huge
agree.
fan of buffalo sauce. I don't always hang in a buffalo stance.
What is he
says you.
I'm rooting for Buffalo now in the AFC. Talk about some of the regular menu items, though, because there is a lot of creativity that goes into the other burger.
And people need time to not make mac and cheese patties.
Well, right now we do have a fig fusion burger. So it's like a fig spread. It has sriracha, cheddar, and pesto. Sounds really weird, and like all the things like don't go together, but it's one of the best things ever. And whenever people come up, they're like, "Why did that work?" And I'm like, "I don't know, Chef Jeff. Like he knows."
That is the same experience I had when I first saw the Twisted Sister on the menu.
I love the Twisted Sister. I have been working here for almost 7 years now, I think. I'm losing track. But the first 4 years, I told Joey every single day we had the Twisted Sister, this is foul. Why is this on the menu? This is crazy. And he's like, just try it. Like, come on, just try it. Peanut butter, jelly, sriracha, and bacon on a burger, I swear to you, is like the holy grail. It is the best burger I've ever eaten in my whole life, and I stand by that.
Yeah, wow. Jeff gave it to me to try. He said, I'm not eating that.
We're not going to take it.
He said, just try it. So I took one bite, and I said, you have to put this on the menu. Just like that, boom.
It's my favorite, too. Anytime it's available, I totally get it.
So we had that as a rotating special in Northampton, but now it's on the permanent menu in East Hampton. So if you're hearing this and your mouth is starting to water, you can come check it out there.
Or if you're horrified and just need to just try it for yourself to see if your fears are founded.
Yeah. You're gonna burn in hell. I dare you. I don't know anybody who's tried it and then said, this is terrible. They've always been like, this shouldn't work. And then it does.
I tell people every single time if I'm taking their order, and I will say, do it, and if you don't like it, I personally will buy you something else.
Yeah. Wow.
And I've never had to buy somebody something else.
We're at Local Burger in Northampton with the heads of Local Burger Northampton and East Hampton, and one of the co-owners of Local Burger with a Local Hero Spotlight with Claire Morneau from CISA.
Why does only Williamsburg have a smoker?
Local Burgie.
It's outdoors. It's outdoors, yes, yeah.
And that's more of a food truck scene.
Yeah. It's all outdoor seating, all out. So it's easy to smoke outdoors.
Yeah, and they do a lot of amazing barbecue there, and then also like lobster rolls and stuff like that. Yeah. And that is seasonal, so that's when it's 9 degrees out, not open.
Yeah, they do have a huge smoker in Bergie, which they do an insane amount. To watch them load that smoker at the end of the night and it will smoke for 14, 16 hours into the morning is insane. But we do have the pork in East Hampton. We'll have that forever as well because we have a really small, tiny indoor smoker. But we have to have something at every location that makes you want to go to each specific location. So if you want barbecue, you gotta go to Bergie.
If you want what? You go to East Hampton.
Cocktails, we have a full bar. They have a bar here too, but we have salads, we have wraps, we have a pastrami melt. Just different things, different environment.
And what about Northampton? I'd ask, but you had to go answer the phone. What makes Northampton special and set apart from the other ones?
West Hampton Burger.
What's on the West Hampton? Because that's, I think, Enzo's go-to.
Barbecue, ranch, cheddar, and bacon. It's great. It's like our best seller.
We sell more West Hamptons than all other burgers combined.
It's good that it exists because we all overshadow West Hampton all the time.
It's hard to get to, and they're a dry city. Sorry, West Hampton.
Yeah.
I feel like for a lot of restaurants, especially going through the pandemic and sort of recovering from that time period, you know, we hear a lot about how it's a difficult time for restaurants, and Local is growing. Do you have insights into how that has been possible for this particular business?
I don't know. I don't know. We were here every day. It was mostly curbside pickup, and people came. See, when you have good food, people are coming, no matter what. That's what we built ourselves on, good food.
I think us being able to not only stay open during COVID, but also expand since COVID it really is just dedication from both ends. Dedication from the community, dedication from the workers. Like, we were here bored most of the time, but there were people coming, and because our workers were coming in, and there were people who wanted our food, so they were supporting us just the same as we were supporting them. And, you know, we had to make changes. We pivoted. We did some grab and go, like home dinners, which we haven't done since then. The chicken sandwich, actually, our buttermilk fried chicken sandwich featured during COVID, and it's been on our menu ever since, and we have a couple different variations of that. So it really is just, what can we do? Everybody was determined, and we made it happen.
Also, Summer on Strong really helped us I feel like it brought in a whole different community of people that probably wouldn't come here.
Which is when the city of Northampton shuts down Strong Avenue, puts out chairs and tables, has entertainment, and people come and can have outdoor dining, not only during COVID, but even, this past summer.
And it really just brought in a group of people that would just come and visit Northampton, and they'd be like, oh, wow, look at all these restaurants outside. And they would come inside and be like, wow, this is their new favorite spot. And that happened a lot throughout the past 3 or 4 summers.
You also have a crew of people that have been with you for a very, very long time. Like, I even looking back in the kitchen, I recognize people that have been coming here as long as I've been coming here. That is not something that is very common in the restaurant industry. So how do you maintain, relationships with your employees that are so good for so long?
We treat them with respect. We love them. They love us. We don't bother them. What did John Paul Getty say? If you treat your employees the way you treat your customers, you'll be successful. And that's what we do.
It's also Chef Jeff. He's a cool dude to work for. He's just kind, and I stand by that. So go Chef Jeff.
I like leaving him as a mystery. We keep talking about him.
Right.
Only someday you'll get to meet Chef Jeff. Back to my Tom Waits voice.
Give me the lowdown, Brown.
The brick and mortar local burger locations are open year-round, but if you're looking for your fix of brisket, lobster rolls, and more, Local Burgie generally opens for their season in late April and stays open until November or when it gets too cold to be out there. Check their Facebook page for more information there. You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM. On the next Fabulous 413, we're hitting the slopes for a good cause. Author Megan Tatey, who you might have heard on a previous one of our episodes, author of Bluebird Day, is bringing the subject matter of her novel to Berkshire East in Charlemont to help out Community Action's Fuel Assistance Program. And we'll find out all about her après ski party. And Live Music Friday brings in TV creds as Madison Curbelo, who you're listening to right now, visits the studio before you can see her and her band take the stage at the Drake this Saturday. We'll hear from the Westfield native herself about fitting her time on The Voice into her studies at Berkeley and more. I'm Khalees Smith. We'll see you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.